He's, by any measure, one of the most beloved figures in the history of country music. A man whose voice feels like a warm hug, whose guitar playing is a masterclass in taste and precision, and whose public persona is the very definition of grace, Vince Gill. With a staggering 22 Grammy Awards, the most for any male country artist, and 18 CMA Awards, his place in the pantheon of legends is secure. He's Nashville's friendliest face, a humble Oklahoman who became country royalty through sheer talent and what seemed to be an unmatched kindness. For decades, he's been the genre's quiet guardian, polished, poetic, and always respectful. This is the man who wrote "Go Rest High on That Mountain," a song that has probably healed more hearts than medicine. He is, in short, country music's nicest guy. But is that the whole story? Behind the friendly smile and shelves of Grammys, a different narrative has taken shape over the years. A storm brewing behind the velvet voice, a quiet criticism, and a fierce defense of the music he loves. For years he smiled on stage, he clapped at award shows, and he never threw a public punch. But make no mistake, he saw what was happening to his beloved genre, and many insiders believe he was privately keeping score. At 68, whispers in the industry and a look back at his career have fueled the idea of a hidden list, 7 artists he philosophically opposed. These aren't just casual disagreements. They represent deep, fundamental divides over the very soul of country music. Today, we're exploring who might be on that list and why. Think you know Vince Gill? After this, you might never listen to his music or theirs the same way again. To understand this rumored list, you first have to get inside Vince Gill's head. For Vince, music is a craft that demands not just creativity, but professionalism and polish. He's a perfectionist, a musician's musician who believes in clear vocals, clean guitar playing, and meticulously crafted songs. And this deeply held belief may have set him on a collision course with our first name, a man who was, in many ways, his complete opposite, the outlaw poet Kris Kristofferson. Now, on the surface, this seems baffling. Kristofferson is a titan of songwriting, the pen behind immortal classics like Me and Bobby McGee, Sunday Morning Comin' Down, and For the Good Times. Vince Gill, a fellow member of the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame, has to respect a lyricist like that. And he does. Gill has publicly praised Kristofferson's immense talent as a writer, acknowledging the raw, emotional power of his words. But the rumored friction wasn't about the songs. It was about the performance. Kristofferson's style was famously raw, unpolished, and full of a gritty, almost chaotic energy. His live shows could be unpredictable, his vocals more about raw feeling than perfect pitch. To many, this was his outlaw charm, his authenticity. But to a perfectionist like Vince Gill, it could have been seen as a disregard for the craft. Some believe Gill found Kristofferson's messy and rebellious stage presence to be a challenge to the very standards of professionalism he held so dear. Sources from within the industry have described a quiet, persistent frustration. At tribute, shows where both were present, Gill's controlled precision was a world away from Kristofferson's freewheeling approach. There were no public blow-ups, no traded insults. This was a Cold War fought in style and philosophy. Gill seemed to believe in honoring music with flawless execution. Kristofferson seemed to believe its power was in its untamed human imperfection. Insiders claim Gill felt Kristofferson was celebrated for a style that, in his view, lacked discipline. While Gill respected the poet, it's believed he couldn't abide the performer, landing Kristofferson squarely on this philosophical list. It's almost sacrilege in Nashville to suggest a rift between Vince Gill and Garth Brooks. These were the two kings of 1990s country, two Oklahoma natives who, for a time, were the genre. They dominated the charts, sold tens of millions of albums, and defined an era. Yet for all their shared success, they never truly collaborated. On a major record, a fact that industry insiders have long pointed to as a sign of a deep, unspoken divide. Their conflict wasn't personal. It was existential. It was a battle over what a country star was supposed to be. Vince Gill was the craftsman, the humble traditionalist who let the songs speak for themselves. His concerts were intimate affairs, focused on breathtaking musicianship. Garth Brooks, on the other hand, was a phenomenon. He transformed country music into a stadium spectacle. With his headset mic, sprinting stages, and dazzling pyrotechnics, he wasn't just singing songs. He was putting on a rock show in a cowboy hut. And while fans adored it, some say Vince Gill watched in quiet dismay. He didn't hate Garth Brooks, the man, but he may have hated what Garth represented, the commercialization of country music on an unprecedented scale. He might have seen the spectacle as a distraction, swapping fire and flash for genuine feeling. A story that has circulated for years is that Garth offered Vince a major duet opportunity in the early 2000s. Vince quietly declined. The reason given, according to legend, wasn't a scheduling conflict. It was a matter of principle, a label. Executive was later quoted as saying Vince didn't want to be part of what he saw as the commercialization of country music. At a private industry dinner, Vince reportedly made a remark that perfectly captured his feelings. "I didn't come to Nashville to see a light show. I came here to hear the truth." While never aimed directly at Garth in public, the sentiment was clear. As Garth's star soared, insiders noted that Vince was always gracious, but never gushing. It wasn't jealousy of the success, but perhaps heartbreak over the genre's new direction. To Vince, country music was about humility and roots. Garth, for all his talent, represented an era where those values were being drowned out by the roar of the crowd. If Garth Brooks opened the door for country to become a commercial juggernaut, the next artist on this list blew that door off its hinges and rebuilt the house with pop gloss and glitter. Shania Twain didn't just cross over. She obliterated the boundaries between country and pop, creating a global phenomenon. And for a traditionalist like Vince Gill, this may not have been a welcome revolution. Let's be clear, Shania's success was undeniable. Come On Over became one of the best-selling albums of all time, any genre. She was a global superstar. But for the old guard of Nashville, which some would say quietly included Vince Gill, the price of that success might have been the genre's very identity. Vince's music is steeped in the traditions of Merle Haggard and Buck Owens, steel guitars, fiddles, and honest songwriting. Shania's sound, crafted with her rock producer husband Mutt Lange, was a slick blend of pop hooks, rock riffs, and dance beats. To a purist like Vince, this may have felt less like an evolution and more like an invasion. It's thought that he saw her music as a dilution of the genre's roots, a calculated move for pop radio at the expense of country's soul. While he never attacked her publicly, his feelings were hinted at through pointed remarks. In a radio interview during the height of Shania mania, without naming names, Vince famously said, "There's country, and then there's country with glitter on top." The target seemed unmistakable. He also once lamented to an interviewer, "Sometimes we forget what genre we're in," a statement many interpreted as a direct response to Twain's pop-heavy sound. Perhaps the most telling evidence is the complete lack of professional intersection between two of the decade's biggest stars. In the late 90s, a duet between Vince Gill and Shania Twain would have been a ratings goldmine. According to industry whispers, the offer was made. And once again, Vince reportedly turned it down with the explanation that our sounds just don't align. In a town as interconnected as Nashville, that kind of sustained distance isn't an accident. It's a statement. For Vince Gill, Shania Twain may have represented the tipping point when Nashville began chasing fleeting pop trends instead of timeless truths. Some philosophical divides are born from grand disagreements over art. Others are born from three simple words: achy, breaky heart. In 1992, Billy Ray Cyrus and his mega hit exploded onto the scene, creating a global line dancing craze. The song was inescapable, but for Vince Gill, it might have been the sound of the bottom falling out. To Vince, a musician who had spent years honing his craft, mastering the guitar, and writing songs with emotional depth, Achy Breaky Heart could be seen as an affront to everything he held sacred. It's believed he viewed the song as simplistic, repetitive, and built on image rather than artistry. It wasn't just that he might have disliked the song, he may have despised what it represented. The moment gimmick and novelty outshone genuine musicianship. This wasn't a grudge he supposedly kept entirely private. The most famous story, now a piece of Nashville legend, is that Vince was overheard quipping that Billy Ray's song had set country music back 10 years. That quote, whether real or not, spread through Music Row like wildfire. It was a declaration of war from the heart of the traditionalist camp. He also reportedly said the song wasn't country, it was karaoke with a mullet. The professional distance was absolute. For Vince, Billy Ray Cyrus wasn't a rival in the same way as Garth or Shania. They were operating in different universes. But Billy Ray was, in Vince's eyes, a symptom of a sickness, the celebration of shallow hits over the soulful music he'd dedicated his life to. It said he believed it did actual damage to the genre he loved, frustration with artists who play outlaw but can't write a verse. Whether it was a direct shot or not, Travis Tritt reportedly took it as one. The comment was seen as a personal slight, a dismissal of his entire artistic identity. It perfectly captured the core of Gill's likely criticism, that the outlaw label was being used as a cover for a lack of true songwriting depth. It was a clash of values. Gill seemed to believe authenticity came from the quality of the song. Tritt seemed to believe it came from attitude and a refusal to conform. Their supposed rivalry never erupted publicly, but it was well known behind the scenes, manifesting in what some described as icy stares and deliberate avoidance at industry functions. As we moved into the 2010s, a new sound began to dominate country radio, a sound that would make Vince Gill's frustrations with 90s pop crossovers seem quaint. This was the era of bro country, and its undisputed king was Jason Aldean. With his backwards cap, rock-heavy riffs, and lyrics celebrating trucks, beer, and tailgates, Aldean forged a massively successful career. To a purist like Vince Gill, it may have sounded like the death knell for substantive country music. Aldean's brand of country was loud, aggressive, and a world away from the intimate, story-driven performances Vince cherished. The core of this philosophical clash wasn't personal. It was about the content. It's believed that Gill saw the bro country movement, led by Aldean, as a hollowing out of the genre's lyrical depth. The rich narratives of love and loss were being replaced by what he likely saw as a checklist of cliches. In a candid, rumored conversation with a Nashville producer, Vince once offered a critique that perfectly captured these feelings about the trend. You can turn it up all you want, but if there's nothing to say, what's the point? That single question was a devastating dismissal of the entire subgenre. While he might acknowledge Aldean as a talented performer, he reportedly viewed his music as lacking the one thing that mattered most: a soul. Vince became an outspoken critic of the bro country trend, though he often avoided naming Aldean directly. In an interview with Rolling Stone, he lamented the state of the genre, stating, "Let's not act like it's country just because the video features a pickup truck." Everyone in Nashville knew who and what he was talking about. This wasn't just a stylistic preference. It was a defense of his life's work. The master songwriter was watching the art of storytelling be pushed aside for party anthems, and he was not going to stay silent. If Jason Aldean was the king of bro country, then the duo Florida-Georgia line were its crown princes, taking the sound to its most extreme conclusion. With their slick production, hip-hop collaborations, and tracks like Cruise, they didn't just bend the genre, they broke it into something Vince Gill may have found utterly unrecognizable. For him, this duo could have been the embodiment of everything he believed had gone wrong with modern country music. Florida Georgia Line seemed to represent the absolute zenith of what Gill had been quietly pushing back against for decades. The commercialism, the pop gloss, and the lyrical simplicity, it all converged in this one incredibly popular duo. It's said his criticism was absolute. He likely saw their music as the complete abandonment of musicianship, tradition, and authentic storytelling. A close friend of his recounted Vince shaking his head after hearing one of their songs and saying, "We used to sing about loss and life. Now it's just trucks and tailgates." That off-camera remark, if true, sums up his despair. This wasn't country music to him. It was a marketing demographic set to a beat. His protest against them was allegedly carried out through quiet, deliberate actions. He was known to decline invitations to perform at award shows that heavily featured them, and he actively avoided collaborations that would put him in the same room. His disapproval wasn't a secret. It was a principled stand. He was not endorsing this. He was not participating in this. To Vince Gill, Florida Georgia Line may have been the final straw, the ultimate product of a Nashville that prioritized chart positions over craft, and he hated it. So there you have it. The 7 names that, through industry legend and philosophical clashes, seem to make up Vince Gill's secret list. From the outlaw poet to the stadium superstar, from the pop queen to the bro country kings, what connects them all isn't personal animosity, but a deep, unwavering principle. This was never about jealousy or ego. For Vince Gill, these supposed feuds were about one thing: defending his vision of what country music is and what it should be. It's a vision built on impeccable musicianship, honest storytelling, and a profound respect for tradition. Each artist on this list represents a moment where country music took a turn away from the path he believed in. He saw spectacle replacing substance, marketing replacing meaning, and formula replacing feeling. His quiet rivalries were his way of fighting back, of refusing to endorse a direction he couldn't support. He's a craftsman watching his craft be commercialized, a poet watching his language be simplified. His public persona as country music's nicest guy isn't a lie. It's just one side of a more complex truth. He is also a fierce guardian of his art form. And the question this forces us all to ask is a profound one. Is Vince Gill a lonely voice of reason trying to protect the integrity of a precious art form? Or is he simply a purist standing in the way of progress, a man out of time defending a legacy that was destined to evolve? The answer, like the music itself, is complicated, and it's a debate that continues to define the very heart of Nashville.